Hi, I'm Knightsmith, and I solely play Telltale games. Telltale is a franchise that are best known for their choose your own adventure games, which has inspired many innovations within the gaming landscape, ever since the release of their first Walking Dead game in 2012. Since the success of this game, Telltale doubled down on this choice-orientated gameplay, and every single release would focus on this choose your path game mechanic, which was such a draw in its initial popularity. However, over time, Telltale's audience became less interested in the gimmick as they started to notice the facade that was being created in front of their very eyes. Your choices didn't matter. Now, yes, it is rather easy to analyze this, as many reviewers and gaming YouTubers have done throughout the years. Yet, before you click off this video, I do not want to sit here and point out what the illusion of choice is, but rather why. Why is it there? Why give us the option of choosing if it's pointless? Why pretend that the relationships I make with other characters in the games matter if they're just going to die or disappear an episode later? But most importantly of all, what does this mean for us as players? You see, within the choose your own adventure subgenre, the illusion of choice has always been present. I say subgenre as I feel choose your own adventure can really fit in any category and still work if done well. Yes, when I first started asking myself that question, I too thought that was not the case, as the books I read as a kid made me feel like I had a lot of impact on the story I was reading. To test this theory, though, I went to my local library and rented out a few books from this subgenre, ranging in quality and reading comprehension level. I think the best way to exemplify this illusion is even within the layout of these books, with several of them just telling you to turn to the next page, or presenting you with linear paths to the ending. And whilst yes, in some cases there are many endings, not all of these make cohesive narrative sense. Like, how is my great uncle both hinted to be a grave robber in one ending and most definitely not in another? How do I determine what's a good ending from this? Often I found myself going, wait, what? Where did this come from? As the gimmick started to wear down on me. On the other hand, some books I found presented you with several options, but most of the time these other choices were more so side quests, which advantaged you in reaching the one goal at the end, rather than actual differing options that completely alter your narrative path. For example, whilst I found Curse of the Mummy particularly interesting, I was rather annoyed when my first read through ended because I accidentally managed to reach the end goal way too early, whilst I was trying to explore and there was no way to backtrack. Let's just say I was a little pissed about that. I think the reason that we are more accepting of this illusion as a child or preteen is that we have a more active imagination with a shorter memory cycle, and as adults, these memories are locked away in the nostalgia for our childhoods. So inherently, Telltale Games is dabbling into creating games, which in themselves need narrative endings or some defining endpoint, and they use this illusion of choice to make their consumers feel as though their playthrough is unique and tailored to them. Yet there is only so much that a developer can do within the code to change the ending outcome for the overall game. What first inspired me to create this video was through watching H2O Delirious' playthrough of the second season of The Walking Dead. Throughout his playthrough, I started noticing the illusion of choice and became rather depressed over it, something I will talk about later. I started asking questions and searching for why the games were made this way, and in order to stop my brain constantly reading normal books or watching movies and expecting to be able to create alternate outcomes and becoming rather dissatisfied when I was unable to do so, I spent the last 3 months instead making this video. Now, before we begin, all games mentioned in this video will have their Steam link included in a pastebin in the description, along with a separate pastebin for any references or videos I use throughout researching this topic, so that you can access them if any pique your interest. Also, spoiler warning for all of the Telltale Walking Dead franchise, which is going to be the main subject of this video, along with slight spoiler warnings for House of Ashes and Detroit Become Human, along with a content warning for gore, mental and physical abuse, and my many breakdowns. Oh, and I fucking swear a lot. Telltale's first season of The Walking Dead is by far its most popular and well-known release, both within the international sphere and the four-season franchise, with over 28 million episodes having been sold as of 2014. In this first game, you play as Lee, a convict who manages to escape his prison sentence thanks to the apocalypse, and ends up looking after a little girl named Clementine. Throughout the playthrough, you are faced with difficult decisions like who do you choose to save and who do you therefore let die, all the while trying to balance looking after a child in a group conflict and your own personal struggles. And whilst the first episode is well known for its major choice between saving Carly or Doug, this isn't actually the first major choice in the game. In fact, within this first major decision, depending on what option you pick, the illusion can start to wane, for no matter what you do, Sean will die and Duck will be saved. So what was the point? I mean, Kenny will basically forgive you straight after for not saving his son and regret multiple times throughout the season for not even attempting to help Sean, at least if you play the way I did. And I barely warmed up to Kenny. Fuck, depending on who you saved out of Carly or Doug, it doesn't matter because Lily goes full psycho paranoid at one point after the death of her father and the disappearance of group's resources, leading her to murder whoever you saved in the first episode, which was completely irrational, at least for my playthrough of the first season, as Lee and her were on amazing terms and I had even convinced her to try and hear out who was robbing us. But this doesn't fit into the overall narrative, and there wouldn't be any drama in this episode if she didn't do so. So yeah, fuck it. Lily is a murderer now. Do you choose to keep her or let her go? Does it matter? No! She fucking steals the RV if you decide to keep her. So what's the fucking point? I leave her. Fuck you, Lily. Anyway, so Ben is so fucking clearly the guy who stole from your group and seems to regret his actions, confessing to it during Lily's psycho rant. So what happens when you go up to him during the train sequence and flat out ask him? He is an asshole to you and acts like you're the cunt for asking. Yet after Duck and Kutch's death, Ben must attain all the attention back on him by telling you that he did it. Now he's fucking ready to bare his soul to the world and confess to his crimes. Fuck you, Ben, you attention whore. I mean, later on when he comes to you for advice, asking if he should tell Kenny, he doesn't listen to you anyway and brings it up at literally the worst possible time. So why do I care? Clearly my big interactions with characters don't matter, and my smaller relationships and conversations with characters are meaningless, so why am I playing this game if that's the main appeal? In this exact same episode, as mentioned before, Kutcher and Duck are killed after Ben's backstabbing leads to a raider attack on the camp, and Duck being fatally injured by walkers. Kutcher, realizing that her son is going to die, can't take it and kills herself. And the game dares to present you with the option of letting Kenny shoot Duck. Who in their fucking right mind is going to let a father who A, knows his kid is about to die and is terrified about that fact, B, literally says to you he is unable to commit the act several times, and C, just witnessed his wife commit suicide, shoot his own kid? I mean, fuck it. Sure, you want to get the ending where Kenny hates your fucking guts. I get it. But genuinely, as an audience member, there is only one right option. That isn't choice. That isn't even illusion. There is a clear right and wrong option. Throughout a lot of the series, there are a clear right and wrong option. That's pretending that you're going to let a man suffering with enough pain in the last 10 minutes also shoot his fucking kid because you totally have no empathy as a human being. How is it that a game focused on choice and oh, look at the impact you made on this world pigeonholes you into a good or bad ending? No matter how much your character grows, no one else changes. So what is the purpose of having interactions with others in the first place if their opinion of you flips and flops to whatever best serves the narrative? The Walking Dead Season 2 starts off with a lack of choice. As you play Clementine, you enter a bathroom by yourself as Krista and Omid watch over the area. You must leave your gun on the counter, and you must attempt to pick up the water bottle that you dropped on the public bathroom's floor, even though the lid was off and you totally lost any water that was in there. Anyway, somebody comes in, steals your gun, Omid gets banged, and that's the opening of the first season. You got somebody killed. You get separated at some point from Krista and eventually meet up with some more survivors near the end of the first episode who are kind of dicks, but you do have a dog bite that could look like a Walker one, so benefit of the doubt. In this first episode, the first big decision you are presented with is deciding to help Pete or Nick. A very similar situation to the ending of the first season's first episode. However, this time your choice matters even less. See, Nick is going to survive no matter what you do, for reasons. I would like to say that if you choose Pete, you discover that Lee could have survived in the first season only if we managed to get him antibiotics, as cutting out the infected arm is in fact a valid way to survive the zombie's bite. So great news, everybody. Lee's death was meaningless and avoidable. I am unsure if this is a change in The Walking Dead's lore or just deliberately wanting us to leave Lee to die. But yeah, at the time I was a little bit jaded by this fact. I had seen this already in a playthrough. Pete dies anyway when you go to grab the group, and you'll eventually meet Reggie, who will give you the same info. Also, yes, Reggie dies. Since I wanted to play it as though Clementine did not know about how the bites worked, I went with Nick. Nick. After Pete's death, Nick goes into a depressive state. Having lost all his family, he becomes a drunken shell of a person who so badly wants to be seen as a hero, but really doesn't care about others. After spending time with him, I felt bad. I empathized. But when the walkers notice you trying to leave, Pete will try to attract their attention. You have the option to join him or run, and no matter what, he will force you to leave. Going back to the group and getting them to look for him, he's basically holed himself back up in the shack you just left. Did he even attempt to fight off the zombies? He didn't have a weapon when you were last together, right? Wait, did he just let you run off to get killed? I mean, we can assume that he just holed himself up in the cabin as soon as we left, right? Like, fuck you, Nick. Another cause for conflict in the second episode is the introduction of Carver. Just picture you're a kid, home alone, and your parents tell you not to open the door for any strangers, and that is basically the scene that plays out with Carver. As Clementine, I literally shut the door on Carver's face, and the guy still let himself in. Like, fucking Christ, I get it, you're a psycho, but can you understand why an 11-year-old girl probably doesn't want a strange man in her house and then act surprised when she tries to grab a knife? Carver's little invasion helps them figure out that the group is staying at the house, and basically, Psycho Man probably impregnated one of the members and is now obsessed with hunting them down. Eventually, he fucks off and asks you your name. I refuse to give it because I am not dumb, and the rest of the group shows up and then blames Clementine for letting Carver in, even when you literally had no choice but to do so. Like, yes, I, an 11-year-old girl, should stand up to fully grown man and protect your what looks to be older yet more sheltered daughter from big scary man you told me shit all about and then expect to force out of the house. Also, fuck you, Carlos. I got super close to your daughter and taught her how to use a fucking gun. Anyway, this is a fun trend in this season. Every fucking adult acting like Clementine should be acting so much older than she already is, saying things like, "We are relying on you," or "It's all up to you." Like, Jesus, I am a kid. I know this is the apocalypse, but still, I am a kid. Yeah, I started becoming a lot more overwhelmed and stressed with the game as it felt impossible to please anyone in this game without them being rude. Skip forward a bit. We're at a bridge. I specifically make sure to leave Nick behind because I do not trust that guy at this point. And whoop-de-doo, Nikki Poo did an oopsie-whoopsie and kinda accidentally shot someone in the neck. Fuck no, it's Ben again. Give me a break. At this point, I was just tired with the game, exhausted and fed up. You arrive at a lodge and then surprise reveal! Kenny isn't dead, and yeah, my tired brain fucking hugged the shit out of him because I just needed somebody to not treat me like shit. And I liked Liam, but he was still trying to justify his friend's actions, which was just not cool, bro. But you see, here's the thing. I don't like Kenny. Even in the first season, I saw him as a coward. There was multiple times where Kenny looked in Miley's eyes and just ran the other way as I was asking for help. So yeah, I kind of didn't particularly have fond feelings for him, and I made my Clem a bit distant, but still wanting to be close since he is my only connection to some form of love. I just decided to accept his existence. At least now I was feeling appreciated and not having to watch overgrown adults be stupid. And oh boy, was I wrong. Back to the plot. Strange lady shows up. Later on, turns out she works for Carver. Shocker. But what inspires their group to come and investigate here particularly puzzles me, since I never gave my name, and if Carver just went Hispanic girl, then I'm surprised they haven't gone on various wild goose chases. Carver shows up, kills new character, no surprises there, and then holds baby mama's husband hostage. I snuck around out back and met up with Kenny, who had a shot on Carver. And you know what? I fucking told him to take it. For some reason, a part of me believed I could break the game's illusion of choice, just because I was hoping so badly for something to go right. Anyway, husband is dead now, and that was pointless. But honestly, if I was in the same position, I would still do it again. Just hoping maybe this time it would actually kill Carver. Throughout the next episode, after being captured by Carver, we start to see a more unhinged side of Kenny, as he starts to be a lot more rebellious and putting others' lives in danger, just so his big dick energy can be felt out in space. And he tries several times to scapegoat me into taking his side, which I just didn't want to do. And just like with my Lee, eventually my Clementine became embittered with Kenny. Kenny starts to depend on you more and more throughout the season, and honestly, this started to take a toll on me. At around the third episode, I was starting to reach an existential dread and depression towards playing these games, as I felt what I was doing was pointless, and I started to see reflections of similar things happening in my real life, where no matter what I did, things just wouldn't work out. You may have noticed that so far I have been focusing solely on the plot rather than the overarching choices you can have, and that's because there's really not many of them. In fact, there is only really one choice that matters throughout the entire game. Do you kill Kenny? You see, Season 2 is full of characters who are abusive, either physically, emotionally, or mentally. In some way, shape, or form, every character is trying to have their influence over Clementine, with the three biggest being Carver, Liam, and Kenny. Eventually, Liam is replaced with Jane, which I personally didn't think fit, because Liam quite literally has the same ideology as Lee, but I still like Jane. Carver is also killed off early on by Kenny, but no matter what, his ideology will stick with your character throughout your playthrough, and the mental abuse he inflicted on you makes you cling onto the closest father figure you can find. And that's Kenny. You see, my Kenny is abusive. Like, not even in the controlling sense. He's mentally, physically, and emotionally abusive towards Clementine. He's worse than anyone else in the game, and he's the closest person to her. He's the person that she cares about the most. Mentally, as mentioned before, because Kenny keeps trying to control and have Clementine fight his fights and agree on his behalf, going so far at one point to call Clem Duck on accident, emotionally specifically around the death of Sarita, Kenny's current girlfriend, who was bit by a walker, and knowing that she dies if you chop off her hand, I didn't go down this route because I was afraid of Kenny. I didn't want to feel his wrath. I was scared of him. So I kept her alive. Was Kenny happy? No. I think the best way to explain this is through my interactions with him.
I tried to save her.
Look at her. I said, look at her. She is going to die. Because of you. You think because you're a little girl, you can just get people killed and no one will care? That because you're sorry, it'll all magically go away? That's not how it works! Now for the last time, just leave us alone to say goodbye. You know what it feels like to get beaten almost to death. Peaceful. It feels peaceful. It was like I was floating away, watching the whole thing happen to me. And then I woke up again, and nothing's changed. I'm still taking a beating. Every day. Duck, Katjaa, Sarita. No peace. No rest.
You can't just hide in here, Kenny. There are people here depending on you.
Oh, yeah. 'Cause I've done so great with everything else in my goddamn life. Why the hell couldn't Carver have just finished me off? Obviously, I ain't helping anyone by being here.
Well, he didn't, and you're still alive, whether you like it or not.
Oh, you're right. I guess I should be celebrating, huh?
Fuck you. Now, yes, I understand that everyone has their days off, but God, Kenny, I'm 11. Cut me some slack, and the more and more this feeling just built up. And then you meet Arvo, who puts your group in danger, starting a fight that gets pregnant lady killed after the birth of her son, AJ. You take Arvo prisoner, and he leads you to a safe house. This is when Liam dies, and since it feels like Arvo lied, Kenny starts beating the shit out of him. I decided to let my Clem step in because she was so afraid that Kenny would kill him, and well... Sure, he didn't mean to do it, but still, the trauma Clementine would feel from that still stands. And later...
You better talk some sense into him. For his sake.
Get the fuck out of here!
It's me.
Clem. Sorry, just give me a second.
So when you're faced with the final decision to shoot Kenny or Jane, I had to shoot Kenny. I needed to take that control back. I needed to no longer be afraid. And I kept Jane around because I needed the comfort of another human being. But of course she dies. So that choice doesn't fucking matter. God damn it, I need a break. I mean, shit, if my choices in my game don't matter, why would they matter in real life? Everything seems to be crashing around me, both in the game and in the real world. I am tired, exhausted, and nowhere near the finish. I fell into an existential depression, looking for some sort of hope within these games that could show me that it mattered. The things I did mattered in a world filled with so much bleakness. I mattered. This was when I rewatched a video by Innuendo Studio called We Don't Talk About Kenny. I'm not fully going to discuss everything in that video, but I would highly recommend that you watch it. Key thing, however, that I took away from his video was, what are all these decisions for? They are used to represent the impacts that we have, but specifically on Clementine in the first season and Kenny in the second. And that's when I started to think, maybe that's what this is all about. It's not about the impacts or the ripples that you have on everyone or the large splash that you have on the world. It's about becoming Lee. If there's one thing you will learn from the third season of The Walking Dead, it's that fucking your brother's wife is not cool, no matter how much of a dick he is. If there is anything else it teaches you, it's that these small decisions you make can matter within the times that people are still around. Season 3 starts off differently, with a new character named Harvey, as he desperately runs down a street to get to his father's house, day 1 of the outbreak. You discover that Harvey's dad has just died, and unfortunately, due to the chaos of the initial outbreak, he missed his father's final moments. David, your older brother, comes and physically confronts you about your lateness, and so far, all is relatively calm. But you as the player know that soon enough, your father is going to reanimate. I personally loved this opening as it had probably the most tension of any scene in the franchise. And after it ended as Harvey, Kate, Gabe, Hector, and Mariana are separated from David and your mother, and I started to think this might be my favorite season. I was not let down as throughout you're faced with tough decisions, and within the first episode your mother and Hector both die off screen, and Mariana, well...
Thanks.
Throughout the season, whilst yes, a few decisions revolved around survival, most of your decisions focused on this family relationship dynamic. And after realizing the secret behind the Telltale philosophy, I started to really enjoy the impact that my decisions would have on the way other characters would interact with me. Yes, at times though, this meant that their personality would drastically change as certain lines of dialogue pushed more towards the narrative and made no sense at all, but at this point, all I really cared for was this family dynamic. However, this game does have actual diverging endings based on the choices you have made throughout the game. So already, your decisions are starting to have more of an impact than in previous seasons. Oh yeah, and Clementine shows up, because we can't have a Walking Dead game without Clementine. Yes, I love Clementine, and I love this game, but this was so unnecessary. The narrative story of this game focuses on a group called the New Frontier, as they constantly harass and try to kill your family for stealing from them. Like, dude, just don't leave a car full of gas in an abandoned auto wreckers and we'll be good. Eventually, they chase you down to another city and break the zombie apocalypse's version of the Geneva Conventions because apparently, on the other hand, self-defense is no longer legal. Kate, your brother's wife, is previously injured in the same fight that killed Mariana, and you're racing to this city called Richmond. At some point, you are separated from her, having to go on foot and discover, oh no, Richmond is controlled by the New Frontier. And as I kind of predicted after the start of the game, your brother David isn't dead. Turns out he is actually one of the leaders in the New Frontier. He still hates us. Aww. And that's when the game introduces the weirdest choice in the entire franchise, the love triangle. You see, the game offers you the chance of romancing your brother's wife. Let's just say, I was kind of uncomfy. Now yes, David is in fact a dick, and yes, he treats Kate horribly, but trying to help me justify going down this route by saying Kate's not actually the mother of your nephew and niece really doesn't change my mind much. And giving me the dialogue option of joking to pull the car off the road for sex within 5 minutes after the opening credits made me hesitant to go down this path. I understand that it's the zombie apocalypse and things, but this was just not it. Also, having Kate get super mad and upset at you when you reject her advances at the end of the game, even though you've been friend-zoning her the entire time, made me rather confused and upset, especially if there was some preconceived relationship set up before the game that I didn't know about. At least from my perspective, Kate was pining for me. I kept saying, but David, she would go, fuck him, and the cycle would continue. And although this specific outcome did not go the way I wanted, I still really enjoyed my interactions with her throughout the game. I just did not like the unnecessary drama that was caused by being in the middle of this squabbling couple, but that's life. You can't control others' actions, nor can you control the way they react to situations. And whilst this may be dissatisfying, it's just the reality of the world. Life isn't fair. Things aren't going to work out perfectly the way we want them to. There is only one thing we can control, and that's who we are going to be. Will you become Carver, obsessed with your family to the point of sacrificing everyone else around you? Will you be Kenny, devastated by your constant losses and letting the bleakness of the world overwhelm you? Will you become your brother as he constantly pushes you to change and harden up? Omid, Trip, Jane, Lily, Nick, Lee. The game doesn't shy away from the comparisons between Lee and Harvey. They're both ex-convicts. They both have flawed family lives before the apocalypse. They are both forced into a parental role, and they both have brothers. That last one isn't important, it's just a fun fact. No, I'm not saying that Harvey must be like Lee in order to be a good character or a good person. But like how David reflects both Carver and Kenny's personality, Harvey is a reflection of Lee. At some point, Clementine will even compare you to Lee. So whilst your brother pushes and pressures you to become more ruthless and violent like him, you don't have to be. Just because the circumstances of the world changed, it doesn't give you an excuse to act a different way. Your actions pre and post-apocalypse matter. You have an impact. Even if you don't notice the ripples, even if you think your upbringing, career choice, relationships, and decisions don't matter, they will have a lasting influence, especially in the next generation. What is legacy? This is the question that the final season of The Walking Dead seeks to explore. We are back to playing as Clementine as she has managed to reconnect with AJ. Yeah, that was a whole thing in season 3, but it wasn't important. AJ for the last 3 or so years has been bouncing around from colony to colony and is now back in Clementine's care. AJ in his short lifespan of 5 years has already faced so much trauma and hardship, from a raid that Clementine was barely able to save him from, to his kidnapping from Clem, and being raised by David from season 3. This leads AJ to be skittish, hot-headed, and rather reliant on the advice of Clem, often taking the words she says to him literally. This is seen in the first episode where early on you tell him to always aim for the head, and during a fight, well...
You win. I can't.
I aimed for the head.
For the rest of the game, you have to deal with the consequences of AJ's actions and teach him the right way to behave, survive, and live. The game will constantly remind you that the things you do will have an impact on him, as his impressionable mind looks to you as an example of what is right. You are now Lee. The games have come full circle as you started off as Lee looking after Clementine and end the series as Clementine trying to teach AJ the various lessons that she and you as a player have learned. You juggle being a teen and wanting to explore love or friendships, making an impression on your fellow cohorts, along with being the primary caregiver of a kid that everybody at every turn has told you to discard. Yet, you refuse to. One of the first adults you'll meet in this game is Lily. Yes, that Lily. She is completely changed, becoming a merciless survivor who sees expansion as the only way to keep people safe, willing to use cruel methods to get what she wants, and even forcing children to join her war. She beckons you to join her and abandon AJ, stating that if you don't, you'll end up just like Lee, dead. Season 3 also questions the player, what makes a human human? How can we define humanity? Is it the fact that we are alive, or is it the way that we act? These questions are prompted through the introduction of James, who shows you that the walkers are peaceful and sometimes even more human than some that wander the post-apocalyptic landscape. Both Lily and James also have potential to influence the way that AJ thinks if you are not careful. Because yes, whilst James's beliefs are rather innocent at first, he does seem to value Walker life over that for humans, only choosing to help Clem when she calls him out on this fact. James also has a no-kill rule that would be reasonable in any environment that was not the world's current hostile and violent landscape. And while this importance of the rule to James is seen through the conflict with Lily. Lily is this season's major antagonist as she abducts survivors from your settlement, forcing them to join her expansionist war, and you quest out to rescue them. By the 4th episode, you've been able to board the ship that she is keeping your fellow survivors on, and before you can free them, you and a few of your companions are captured. AJ attacks a guard, and Lily, seeing his furiosity and anger, separates him from Clementine to start influencing him into becoming one of her soldiers. After she is left, you are able to break free and rush up to the top deck to face Lily and save AJ. And this is when you are faced with your hardest decision in all of the franchise. Do you let AJ kill Lily? Whilst yes, Lily is dangerous, James's words still ring in your mind.
I'm afraid if AJ kills again, he won't be able to go back. He won't be the same boy he was. I've seen it happen too many times.
What is this going to do to AJ? I mean, you're already concerned about his mental state and violent tendencies throughout the game, and you know that the things you allow or not allow AJ to do will shape him as a person and who he will grow up to be after you're gone. I set up my computer for at least an hour, looking at forums of people discussing what the right path to take is.
I told AJ to lower the gun. I nearly told him to kill her because of what she did to Lewis and others in my playthrough. But at the last second, I thought of what James said and how this could seriously screw up AJ, so I decided against it. However, I regret it because this probably screws up AJ more since James died in front of him if he didn't shoot.
How does James actually believe that for the entirety of AJ's life he will not have to kill someone? The whole idea of one kill will send him over the edge is ridiculous, since he may have to kill someone to protect himself and others.
Thought about this long and hard after first telling AJ to back down. I realized my reaction was wrong, as it was influenced by James's words about how something would break in AJ if he killed again. As a parent, you are constantly in a state of self-doubt, wondering if you are doing right by your child or causing harm, and James's words played right on that feeling. So realizing my morals are the ones in question and not those of James, and realizing I'm teaching AJ how to survive my way just as Lee was teaching Clem before, and I went back and changed that decision. I'm sure AJ is broken, but I think that's fine, as long as he is broken my way.
Lee wouldn't be proud.
Did you play Season 1?
My Lee would be proud. He taught Clem to be a good person while knowing when to make the hard decisions. Kenny would be proud too. That's what matters to me. Kenny and Lee are who raised and influenced Clem. Lily was unredeemable. She was absolutely evil. AJ is learning to make the hard decisions too. He knows killing Marlon was wrong, and he always knows killing Lily was right.
I let AJ shoot Lily. It's good to be ruthless in a ruthless world.
I let AJ shoot her. Not because James is my boy, my precious little pineapple pizza lover, but because Lily couldn't be redeemed. Like AJ said, I killed Marlon. He wasn't a monster, but you are. I'll kill you myself. So I let him do what he set out to do.
I'm gonna kill that bitch myself, especially after what she did to Lewis.
AJ shot her. Not because it was the right thing to do. Not because she deserved it. Clementine made AJ shoot her for survival. And yes, he enjoyed it. But she taught him that wasn't okay. Clem did it to protect AJ. But not just AJ, but all the other survivors from the child community. Was it the right decision? Maybe not. Will anybody affected by it remember or care? It doesn't matter. My legacy doesn't matter. I don't have to see it bear fruit. Just hope that it was the best decision and face the consequences for my choice afterwards. The hardest part about choices is letting go, accepting the fate that we are left with. We are faced with another hard decision right after AJ confesses to enjoying Lily's murder. Do we trust him to make the hard decisions? Do you believe that AJ has no control? Do you have that little faith in your choices and him that you can't trust him? AJ is flawed, but so are we. We as humans are flawed. We make mistakes and regret them, and we learn. We start to identify what the right choices are and when is the right time to act one way or another. So I trusted AJ, even though he worries me. I trusted him because I loved him, and that is what love is, trust. Just like Lee trusted me. AJ, unfortunately, has to make the hard decision, killing his friend Ten after Ten refuses to cross a bridge, putting the life of another survivor in danger. You, AJ, and the survivor try running back to your settlement, but you were recently injured in a fight with Ten's older sister, and as you try to escape, your leg is bitten by a walker, and the clock starts ticking. Managing to come upon a barn. Unable to walk much longer, you collapse on the floor. You instruct AJ to shut all the pen doors, your perspective switching from him back to Clem, desperation filling the air. Eventually, you are able to close off all of the openings, AJ returning to your side. Clem is in a bad state, unable to walk, with her leg all mangled from her various injuries, and the exhaustion wearing down on her. She commands AJ to kill her. And as he lifts the axe, it's somewhat ironic that the Walking Dead games reflect the life of Telltale as a company. Season 1 was their initial success, making a name and large impact for themselves within the gaming sphere. Season 2 shows them starting to slip as they begin to be overwhelmed with the multitude of projects that they had undertaken without thinking of the consequences. Season 3 follows a main character who has gambled his life and career away, affecting those who he truly cared about as he tries to redefine himself within these tough times. And Season 4? Telltale filed for bankruptcy in 2018. Season 4 was about their death, the end, their legacy, and what they would leave behind. What had their choices amounted to? According to the law, nothing but debt. To the fans, games that they really appreciated. Would they only be remembered for that first Walking Dead game, when their magnum opus was sitting there, crying for attention? Unfortunately for Telltale, we don't get to decide how others react, feel, what they choose to do, no matter how much we try to exploit the dialogue options or make one choice to be in someone's favor. It doesn't work that way. So in 2019, a new Telltale Games was established, and people criticized and demanded that the team compensate those who worked for the old company. Their response?
We cannot right the wrongs of the former company. Please give us time to ramp up and then judge us by the work we do, not by the past over which we have no part and control in.
Choice. We aren't always going to get it right. Not even Clem, because she was wrong. She wasn't Lee. She could survive. She just had to trust that AJ could make the tough decisions. Whilst the Telltale games may not be the most diverse or expansive or even the best choose-your-own-adventure games, they are the first to be recognized throughout the world, and they are the only ones who seem to implement this lack of choice into their game philosophy. Despite Detroit Become Human having a better plot with smoother and more varied branching, or House of Ashes, my personal favorite game of the year, nailing the relationship impacts your choices will make on other characters, neither of them justifies why. Why is it this way? Why give us choice? Sure, it's cool to play as a robot and question what defines something as human, or try and manipulate and mend the human relations of characters to survive a horror-filled landscape, but they don't make you reflect on your choices other than, what do I get out of it? How does this advantage me? Rather than considering if your choice was really the right one. I will say that if you want to create your own Telltale narrative, horror is probably the best route to go down, as the impacts of death on the overall story will drastically change the outcomes. But Telltale goes deeper than this. All these games are just lessons about our choices and what they mean. Season 1 teaches us that sometimes we won't make the right decisions. We will fuck up. Things don't always go to plan, but if we are the best versions of ourselves, that is all that matters. Season 2 teaches us through Kenny, Carver, Jane, and Liam that sometimes others aren't good at making decisions either. And it's okay to trust your own instincts, even if you are going against the will of someone who is in authority over you. Also stating that sometimes people you care about change for the worst, and you may have to let them go. Season 3 teaches us that we can change and our choices in life don't define us, whilst also highlighting the fact that we can't control how others react to our decisions. Season 4 concludes that our choices will have an impact, even if we don't realize the way we interact with others, no matter how big or small, will affect the way they feel. Even if it's for a moment, an episode, a forgiving word, or a goodbye. They will all have a lasting impact, like ripples on water. We don't have to be around to see the waves they create. So, be the best you can be. And tell somebody you love them. You never know when it's going to be the end of the world.
Wish I had something more to give you. You've been feeling bad this time of year. If I could, I would drive out to see you. Things are finally looking up for me this time. Take it from me, I'd be lost without you. I try to run away, but you're running up on me faster, and I could barely breathe. I couldn't even turn around. I only hope we make it home. Say